The mysterious arrival, the Galactic Council's main communication hub, was in chaos. Bright blue screens flashed red warnings as officers scrambled for answers. A mysterious warship had just entered the outer edge of the galaxy. Unregistered, unknown, and completely silent Grand Strategist Vin stood at the center of the command deck, his reptilian fingers gripping the control panel. He had served in the Galactic Council for over 2 centuries, but never had he seen anything like this. "What do we know about it?" he barked. A young officer, his voice shaking, replied, "Sir, the warship's design does not match any known species. No energy signatures detected. It's just sitting there." Ven narrowed his eyes. A ship of that size should have been consuming massive amounts of energy, yet it remained motionless, drifting like a ghost. "We need visuals," ordered. The main screen flickered, and the image appeared. A massive dark warship floated in the vast emptiness of space. Its hull was covered in unknown markings, and its structure was unlike anything seen before. Sharp, angular, and built for war, it looked ancient yet somehow alive. A hush fell over the room. Even the most battle-hardened officers felt a strange sense of unease. "Send a scouting fleet," Vin finally said. "We need answers." The first contact. 3 scout ships were dispatched, gliding through the void toward the mysterious vessel inside. The lead ship, Captain Harrows, monitored his sensors carefully. Still no response. His co-pilot whispered, "It's like it doesn't even notice us." Harrows frowned. It was impossible. Any warship of this size should have detected their approach long ago. "Keep weapon offline," he ordered. "We don't want to provoke it." As they moved closer, the ship's details became clearer. Its dark metal plating absorbed light, making it hard to judge its true size. Strange symbols glowed faintly along its hull, pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Then, without warning, every system on the scout ship shut down. The control panels went dark. The lights flickered and died. The ship stopped moving, frozen in space. Panic spread through the crews. "What's happening?" Harvo shouted. He tapped at his controls, but nothing responded. Even their emergency communication signals were dead. Then a deep mechanical voice echoed through their ships. "Do not interfere." It was a simple warning spoken in perfect Galactic standard. Harrows felt his blood run cold. How is it speaking our language?" His co-pilot stammered. Before anyone could react, the scout ships were pushed back, not by weapons, but by an invisible force within. Seconds, they were flung away from the warship, drifting helplessly toward their home fleet. The mysterious warship remained still, silent, watching fierce spreads across the galaxy. When the scouts returned, their data was analyzed, but no one could explain what had happened. The warship had displayed no weapons, no shields, yet it had rendered the ships completely helpless with a single unseen force. Within hours, the entire Galactic Council was in an emergency meeting. "This is a threat," declared High Chancellor RAC, slamming his fist on the table. "No ship should have this kind of power. We must destroy it before it attacks us. Others were less certain. "Destroy it," Senator Melvix scoffed. "You want to fight something that disabled an entire fleet without firing a single shot? Are you insane?" Whispers spread through the chamber. The galaxy's greatest leaders had never been this divided. Then another message arrived, a single transmission sent from the mysterious warship to every major faction in the galaxy. It contained only 3 words: "Stay out, leave." It was a warning, and warnings were never given without a reason, as the leaders argued over their next move. Grand Strategist Vin stared at the screen. Something about this warship felt familiar, as if it had been here before. But that was impossible. Wasn't it the first mistake? The Galactic Council wasted no time. Within hours of the warning message, a massive fleet was assembled. Hundreds of warships, each armed with the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, were deployed to surround the mysterious vessel. Grand Strategist Vin stood aboard the Sovereign's Wrath, the flagship of the fleet. His clawed hands rested on the console, his mind racing. "This is a mistake," he muttered under his breath. But the High Chancellor had already made his decision. The mysterious warship was too dangerous to ignore. Across the command deck, Admiral Koch, a hardened warrior from the Brawltan species, "Ted, enough of this cowardice." Vin Carvo growled that ship dared to threaten the entire galaxy. We will make an example of it. Valoran remained silent. He knew Carvok's kind, proud, overconfident, unwilling to consider the unknown, and that unknown was watching them. The first shot the war fleet formed a massive sphere around the unknown vessel. Every ship had its weapons locked on the target. Admiral Kuro's voice boomed across the open channel. This is your final warning. Identify yourself or face destruction. The mysterious ship cannot show weakness. Carvok snapped. We must enough. The High Chancellor's voice cut through the tension. Everyone fell silent. The Chancellor's face was unreadable, but his voice carried a weight of finality. This is no longer a battle. This is a war of knowledge. We must learn what it is, what it wants, and if it can be reasoned with. He turned to Fran. You will lead a diplomatic expedition. Find out what this worship truly is. Ven's stomach twisted. Diplomacy, with something that could erase empires. But he knew the truth. There was no other choice. The planet of ghosts. Vin stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel, staring at the massive warship hovering above a long-forgotten planet. It was waiting, not attacking, not hiding, just waiting. The planet below was unmarked on any modern star maps, a dead world abandoned so long ago that not even the archists remembered its name. Yet the warship had come here. Why? The descent into the unknown. Ven's ship broke through the planet's thin atmosphere. The sky was as sickly green as if the air itself had once been alive, but had long since died. Below, the landscape was a graveyard of ruined, shattered towers stretched like skeletal fingers toward the sky. Massive craters marked ancient battles that no one remembered, and yet there were no bodies, no wreckage, no signs of what had happened, just emptiness. Valen's team, seasoned explorers, soldiers, and scientists, sat in uneasy silence. Even the battle-hardened surgeon gripped his rifle a little tighter. Something about this place felt wrong. A city frozen in time. The landing was smooth, but the silence was suffocating. As they stepped onto the cracked streets, Valen noticed something unnatural. Everything looked preserved. Buildings stood untouched, as if people had simply walked away. Mid-step, there were still plates on tables, tools left on workbenches, as if the entire civilization had vanished. In an instant, Sergeant Core muttered, "This ain't right, Sir." Vin nodded. He felt it too, the weight of absence. Then one of the scientists gasped, "Sir, I think I found their writing." Valen turned. On a crumbling wall, etched in deep, jagged marks, was an ancient script. The universal translator struggled, flickering through different possibilities. Before settling on the closest match, it read, "We thought we could resist. We were wrong." Van exhaled. His heartbeat thumped in his chest. That's when his communicator crackled to life. "The warship speaks." A deep, ancient voice rumbled through the comms. "You should not have come." Vin froze. The voice was neither mechanical nor organic. It sounded layered, like countless voices, speaking as one. He steadied himself. "Who are you?" The voice answered without hesitation. "We are the last warning bands." Blood ran cold. Warning of what? There was a long pause, then in a whisper that sent shivers down his spine, the warship said, "Of what comes next, the truth beneath the planet." Suddenly the ground shook. Dust and debris tumbled from the buildings. The ruins trembled as something deep beneath the surface began to stir. Ven's communicator screamed with interference. His scientist yelled, "Something is waking up down there." Valen turned to the warship still hovering in the sky. This wasn't just a forgotten world. It was a prison, and something inside was about to be set free. The awakening below, the ground beneath Vin's feet trembled violently, sending cracks racing across the ruins. Dust choked the air as ancient buildings collapsed under their own weight. From deep below, something stirred. A sound, low and resonant, vibrated through the stone, a pulse like a heartbeat. It was slow at first, then faster, and then silence. Valoran barely had time to process before his communicator flared to life again. "Run." The voice came from the warship, but it was too late. The shadows rised, the cracked streets sank inward, revealing an enormous abyss. From within, something crawled up the jagged walls, something dark, shifting and formless. Then came the first scream, one of Vin's men, a scout standing too close to the edge, let out a blood-curdling cry. Before anyone could react, a tendril of black mist snaked around him and pulled him into the pit. His screen was cut. Short Sergeant Cord fired his rifle into the darkness, but the shot simply vanished, swallowed by the writing mass. Gin grabbed his communicator warship. What the hell is that? For the first time, the ancient vessel hesitated, then it answered. The reason your galaxy still exists, the forgotten Warvran's mind raced this thing. This nightmare had been trapped here, which meant someone had put it here. He turned toward the warship in orbit. This is why you came, isn't it? He demanded. This thing, it was never dead. The warship's voice was grim. It was sleeping. And now you have woken it. The ruins around them began to shift. Walls crumbled, revealing massive glyphs buried beneath the stone, warnings in languages so ancient they predated even the Galactic archives. Velen recognized only one symbol. It was human, a name lost to time. Kor cursed under his breath. You're telling me humans were here before the galaxy even knew what a spaceship was? Valoran didn't answer. His hands trembled as he traced the human glide. It was a name lost to history. The warship's voice softened. They called themselves the first. Valoran felt the weight of the words. Before humans became a space-faring race, before the galaxy's great empires even rose, there had been others, the first humans, and they had fought something so terrible that they had wiped all record of it from history, except here, because this was their battlefield. And the war wasn't over. The entity unleashed. The black mist roiled, taking shape. Eyes not organic, not mechanical, but something wrong opened within the swirling darkness. And then, in a voice older than any empire, it spoke. You are not them. Ven's blood turned to ice. It had been waiting for the first to return. But they never did, which meant only one thing: the first had failed. And now the galaxy was defenseless. The first's final gambit. The ground shuddered violently, sending cracks racing toward the edges of the ruins. The entity, an ancient nightmare, born from the void, rose higher, shifting and twisting into impossible forms. Its presence warped reality, the very air humming with unnatural vibrations. Valoran felt his mind scream, his instincts urging him to flee, but he couldn't. Not yet. He gritted his teeth and turned to the warship. You knew this thing was here. You knew what we find. The ship's voice came through the communicator, calm but heavy with something Vin could only describe. Describe this horror. Yes. Ven's stomach twisted. Then tell me how to kill it. The warship hesitated, and then it said something unexpected. You cannot. The weapon beneath the dust. Vran's heart pounded. The first humans, the ones who came before, hadn't defeated this thing. They had only buried it. If they, the supposed greatest warriors of ancient times, couldn't destroy it, what chance did he have? But then the warship spoke again. There is only one way. A deep rumble beneath Valen's feet sent a shock wave through his bones. The ruins were moving, and then something massive rose from beneath the sands. At first it looked like another fragment of the crumbling city, but as the dust settled, Vin realized the truth. It wasn't a ruin. It was a machine, a colossal ancient war construct, a relic of the first, and it had just woken up. The last stand of the first. K's voice crackled through Vin's earpiece. Commander, what the hell is that? Vin didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the massive structure, its surface covered in symbols, some unreadable, some unmistakably human. The entity let out a piercing screech, shifting toward the construct as if it recognized it. And then, for the first time, Vin saw something he never expected. Fear. The warship's voice cut through the chaos. The first knew they could not kill it, so they built this. Valoran swallowed hard. What is it? The warship's voice darkened. A prison, a last resort, the choice. Valoran watched as the construct's power systems surged to life, ancient energy fields crackling around its form. But something was wrong. The warship spoke again, this time with urgency. It needs a pilot. Vin felt his blood turned cold. Wait, you're saying someone must go inside, activate it, bind the entity before it reaches full power? Silence fell over the team. Vin looked at the black mist, its shape expanding, growing more solid. If they didn't act now, it would become unstoppable. He exhaled sharply And if no one pilots it, the warship's answer was simple: then the galaxy dies. The final gambit begins. Vin turned to his squad. Get back to the ship, that's an order. Kor's eyes widened. Commander, no, we can find another way. There is no other way. Vin clenched his fists. This is what the First left for us. This is what they died for. Kor gritted his teeth that nodded, pulling the rest of the team away. Valoran turned back to the colossal machine and took a deep breath. Then, without another word, he stepped inside. The door sealed shut behind him. A holographic interface flickered to life. Ancient symbols scrolling across the walls, and then the construct spoke. Pilot. Recognized. Activation initiated outside. The entity let out a roar of rage inside. Vin took hold of the controls of a weapon built to trap a god. The final battle had begun, the last battle of Vin. The moment Vin gripped the controls, a shockwave of energy surged through the massive war construct. The ancient machine came alive, metal plates, shifting power conduits igniting with a brilliant blue glow. Outside, the entity of the void let out a screech that made reality itself seem to ripple. It recognized the machine. It had fought it before and survived this time. Vin swore it would not escape the First's final secret. The construct systems flooded Vin's mind with information memories left behind by the first humans. They had not built this machine as a weapon of destruction. They had built it as a prison. The First could not kill the entity, so instead they bounded inside this very war construct, a living tomb powered by a pilot who would become one with the machine. Vin's breath caught in his throat. The warship had lied. This wasn't a machine to defeat the entity. It was a machine to contain it forever. The cost of victory. Outside, the entity lunged its form, shifting into a maelstrom of shadows, tendrils of darkness lashing out at the war construct. Valoran barely had time to react. His instincts kicked in, and the ancient machine moved with him. It wasn't like piloting a normal ship or mech. It was alive. The machine responded to his thoughts, his fears, his will. Boom! Vin swung a colossal energy blade, severing the entity's attack, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The warship's voice crackled in his ear. Vin, you must finish this now. If it fully manifests, not even that machine will stop it. Valen narrowed his eyes. He knew what he had to do. Sealing the darkness, the construct's core reactor hummed, power building at a dangerous rate. Symbols scrolled across the cockpit's walls, their meaning clear. Final. Perul at 80. Soul binding. Vran's chest tightened. Once he activated it, the entity would be sealed inside the construct. But so would he. There would be no escape, no second chance, no going home. The last transmission. Vin opened a channel to the fleet. Kor's voice came through instantly. Commander, we detecting a massive energy surge. What the hell is going on? Valen exhaled. He couldn't lie. Not to them. I'm finishing the fight. Silence. Then Kor's voice strained. No. You can't mean. Valen smiled despite the weight on his shoulders. I need you to do something for me. Kor's voice cracked. Anything. Vin closed his eyes. Tell them. Humanity never kneels. And then before anyone could stop him, he activated the protocol. The end of the entity. The construct erupted with power, ancient energy engulfing the battlefield. The entity screamed, its form riding as golden chains of light wrapped around it, pulling it into the war construct's core. Vin's body disappeared into the machine. He felt himself fade, his mind merging with the war construct. But before the darkness could take him completely, he heard something, a whisper, not from the entity, not from the warship, from the First. You are not alone. And then everything went silent. The war construct froze its power, dimming. The entity was gone, and so was Vin. Aftermath. A legend is born. For a long time no one spoke. Then Kor whispered he did it. The fleet watched as the war construct stood motionless like a monument left behind by the First. No one dared touch it. No one dared approach, because they knew Vin was still inside. And so the war construct was left undisturbed, drifting in space. As a warning to the galaxy, a legend was born. That day, the story of the warship that forced the galaxy to its knees, and the human who sacrificed everything to save it. Move it did not respond. Karvok's patience snapped. All ships fire blazing beams of plasma kinetic slugs and energy. Torpedoes surged toward the warship. It should have been torn apart instantly. Instead, the attacks vanished. Every single blast, every missile, every projectile disappeared before reaching the warship, as if space itself had swallowed them. A wave of silence rippled through the fleet. Vin's scales turned ice cold. What just happened? A captain stammered over the comms. Then, for the first time, the warship moved, not fast, not aggressively, just a slow, deliberate turn until it was facing the Sovereign's wrath. And then it spoke, the voice of power. You were warned. The voice was not a transmission. It bypassed the ship's communication systems. It was inside their ships, inside their minds. Some officers screamed, others clutched their heads in agony. Even Karvok, the proud warrior, stumbled back, his breathing ragged. Vin clenched his jaw. This was not just a ship, it was something else, something beyond their understanding. And then the warship retaliated. The retaliation, a pulse of energy rippled out from the vessel. Not an explosion, not a weapon, just a wave. The moment it touched the first warship, systems failed instantly. Shields collapsed, weapons overheated, entire fleets went dark, as if a cosmic hand had crushed them. The mighty Sovereign's wrath, the pride of the Galactic Council, was left powerless, drifting like a dying ember. Admiral Karvo gasped, his eyes wide with terror. This is impossible. Valen, however, realized the truth. The warship wasn't attacking them, it was showing mercy. Had it wanted to, it could have erased the entire fleet in an instant. Instead, it had only disabled them. For now, the message, as the powerless ships drifted, the voice spoke. Again, we are not your enemy. But if you test us again, you will cease to exist. With that, the mysterious warship vanished. No warp signatures, no dimensional rifts. It was just gone, leaving behind nothing but silence and fear. The forgotten legend. The Galactic Council chamber was silent. No debates, no arguments, just an oppressive dread hanging over the room. Grand Strategist Vin stood at the central podium, his golden eyes scanning the faces of the High Chancellor and the ruling officials. Fear was written across every expression. Even Kvok, usually arrogant and aggressive, sat motionless, his claws gripping the table. Valen took a slow breath. He knew the question on everyone's mind. What in the stars just happened? Finally, the High Chancellor broke the silence. Valoran, his voice was low but firm. You were there. Explain this thing. Valoran stepped forward. It was not a normal warship, he said. It was something far beyond our technology. Our weapons were erased before impact. Our ships were disabled without a fight. He let his words sink in before adding, and it let us live. A murmur rippled through the chamber. A name from the past. The ship called itself Weekend continued. Which means it's not just a machine, it's intelligent. Maybe even. He hesitated. Ancient, a deep, raspy voice interrupted him. Ancient or forgotten? Everyone turned. An old, frail-looking council member leaned forward. His name was Chancellor Orvis, the oldest historian in the council, so ancient that most assumed he would never speak again. Vin frowned. You know something? The old chancellor let out a slow breath. I know a legend, a myth so old that even I once doubted its truth. His voice dropped to a whisper. But now, I wonder. The council chamber leaned in. Orvis closed his eyes, recalling the tale buried in history, the warship that shouldn't exist. Long ago, before the Galactic Council existed, before the empires of today ruled the stars, there was a war unlike any other, a war against them. The air in the chamber seemed to grow colder. The records are scattered. Some say they were an ancient species, some say they were not a species at all, but something different, something that did not belong in this galaxy. They did not conquer planets, they did not enslave. They only had one rule: do not challenge us. But we did. The ancient civilizations, arrogant and fearless, defied the warning. Orvis' voice lowered further, and one by one they vanished. Valoran swallowed hard. What happened? Orvis looked at him, his eyes filled with something Vin had never seen before. True terror. They disappeared, not conquered, not destroyed, just gone. Entire fleets, whole empires, cities, planets, no wreckage, no survivors. As if they had never existed at all. The chamber was deeply silent. Valoran exhaled. And you think this warship is one of theirs? The old chancellor nodded. The decision. Admiral Karuk, still pale from the recent battle, clenched his jaw. Then we must attack now before it can do the same to us. Valen turned to him. Sharply. Attack. You saw what it did to us, without even trying. If we provoke it again, there may not be a fleet left to tell the tale, but we